What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be doing another episode in my Locked Up With series. I know it's been a minute since I filmed one of these, but man, this one is emotional and kind of difficult to talk about because it includes mental health issues, self-harm, and also motherhood in prison. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a recovering addict who served time in prison, and my entire crazy life story is in the description box down below. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, I would highly recommend it so that you can see behind the scenes stuff. I have TikTok, Instagram, Patreon. That's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked in the description box down below, as well as my vlog channel and my podcast. So a lot of stuff going on in the description box. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this thing off. I think we're running out of fake names to call people, but I guess I will call this girl Lucy. Have I used Lucy before? It doesn't matter. For the sake of the video, today she is Lucy. I met Lucy after I was kicked out of a medium security prison and sent back to a maximum security prison for beating up a chomo. Crazy story. If I can remember to link it, I will link it in the description box or on the card. Remind me if I forget. Sometimes YouTube doesn't save the cards too. Not the point. I'm way off topic here. But that's when I met Lucy. I moved into a dorm and she was my bunkie. She had a bottom bunk, I had a top bunk. Now, not that this matters either, but top bunks are crappy. It was an open dorm. You have no privacy on a top bunk. Everyone wants a bottom bunk, so you get a little bit of privacy. Also, you get a little bit more space because you can like put things on the bunk bed, like, you know, there's like railings and stuff. You can put pictures there, or you can put pictures on the top bunk. Like if you're on the bottom bunk, you can put pictures above you, right? So there's a little more space and you have a wall right there. Like, so people want the bottom bunk. The only time I had a bottom bunk is when I was pregnant. So a lot of people that have bottom bunks have epilepsy, or there's some kind of reason why they can't have a top bunk. She was on the bottom and I was on the top. And right next to me, I was locked up with a woman that I could tell whole stories about too. She was the sweetest woman ever. Definitely not somebody you would ever expect to be in prison. She was a nurse that worked for a plastic surgeon and she went to prison for pills. Long story, but she was on the bunk next to me on the top. And over time, I became really good friends with her. But my bunkie, Lucy, she had been to prison probably 5 times at that point, all for her substance use disorder, all because of drugs. She was also the biological mother of 6 children. As I kind of started to get to know these people that were in my bed area, and as you know, the weeks went on, we eventually would talk about certain things, or we would talk about our families. And keep in mind that prison is a very emotional place. We all miss our families, we all miss our kids, our cousins, our brother, our husband, our wife, whatever the situation is. We miss our people. And mail call is tough because a lot of people don't get mail and a lot of people are doing time alone. I was one of those people that did time alone, and I just recently given birth to Micah. Micah was probably about 6 months old at this time. One night, Lucy gets a picture in the mail of her biological daughter, and Lucy decided that she was going to open up to people in our bed area. So me and a couple other girls were talking, and she opened up and said that she had given all of her children up for adoption, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Especially if you are struggling, I could understand it. That wasn't where the issue came in. Lucy goes on to say in a very boastful way that her previous lawyer in her last case adopted her daughter. So I thought, wow, I mean, that's something that you don't hear every day, right? Because this is a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer for a methamphetamine case. So, wow, okay, she must have been really nice, you know what I mean? So at first, no one had an issue with that. No one was upset about that. Lucy goes on to say that this lawyer paid her $10,000, and that's what she was boastful about. Yeah, I got paid 10 grand, and she kept going on and on about it, and a lot of the women started to overhear what Lucy was saying, and they were upset for many reasons that, you know, they miss their children and they had a problem with Lucy. Ever since she opened up and shared about that, to some women that I was living with, they were saying that she sold her kids. Now, I had just given birth, and although I didn't understand what was going on in Lucy's life at the time, I didn't really pay much attention to the conversation, if I'm being honest. But I did pay attention to how other women were reacting to it. And I thought, this is gonna be a problem. I was on the top bunk when Lucy was sharing these things with my feet kind of hanging over, just kind of listening and looking over at my other bunkie, not bunkie, but next to me bunkie. And she's like looking at me crazy and I'm like, what's the big deal? You know, like that's not our situation, you know? But the big deal is women miss their kids and they can't even see their kids. And Lucy did seem a little boastful about getting $10,000 for her child. Now there is nothing wrong with adoption. There's nothing wrong for being compensated for that. People do surrogacy. Like, it's not an uncommon thing, you would think, but prison's different, and prison inmates are very emotional and tired and dehydrated and not getting proper nutrition or even freaking sunlight, right? So emotional. Emotions run high in prison. I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and another woman was in the bathroom crying after hearing the way that Lucy talked about this, and she was crying because she missed her daughter and she was upset. And, you know, I didn't stop and try to calm this person down. I just went to the bathroom, washed my hands, went back to the bunk area. So as time went on, you know, a few hours had passed since Lucy had opened up, more and more women became upset because now a rumor has started. Instead of saying Lucy put her kids up for adoption or Lucy's lawyer adopted her daughter, instead of saying that, what was being said was that Lucy sold her children for meth. That was what was being said. And when you hear Lucy sold her children for meth, you're like, what? She did what? Like, they didn't even hear the story. They didn't hear what she said. They didn't hear like, oh, I put my children up for adoption previously. They weren't explaining it the right way. Like, they weren't explaining like Lucy put her child up for adoption and then her lawyer adopted her last biological daughter. Like, they didn't explain that. The rumor was Lucy sold her kids to buy meth. So of course people are getting upset by that, but it's like a giant game of telephone, right? Like, that's not what she said. She's just in here for meth and she put her kids up for adoption, but now everyone else is like, sold her kids to buy meth, like crazy. As the stress of that started to build, Lucy started to hear the things that other people were saying. She had a very specific way of self-harm. To pause the story here, self-harm in prison is something you are punished for. Self-harm in prison is very common. And it's one of those things that is heartbreaking and gut-wrenching to see, but it's really common and we cannot tell the officers when that is going on. Because if you tell an officer that somebody is self-harming, what they're gonna do is they're gonna come in, they're gonna inspect that inmate, and if they have new scarring or a new wound on their body, they are going to be taken to segregation. They're going to be put on razor restriction, which means you can't have a razor, you can't get a razor, can't shave your legs, nothing like that. And you're gonna be punished for that. Over time, in the last facility that I was at, mental health started giving people that were found self-harming rubber bands. So when they would get overwhelmed or stressed and they would have that urge to self-harm, they would snap the rubber band on their wrist. Well, corrections officers started taking them away. They would confiscate them because we're not allowed to have rubber bands. But then mental health tried to give inmates a prescription for it so they could carry it. Like, no, mental health said I could have this. That's the challenge that mental health professionals are up against when dealing with inmates. You have the prison and what the prison says you are and are not allowed to do, like the state regulations and the rules and all of that. Then you have what mental health professionals know the right thing to do is. So they're so conflicted. How is a mental health professional supposed to help their patients who are inmates if the state is saying that goes against our guidelines or our rules or whatever, right? Back on track with Lucy, she became overwhelmed and she would bite herself when she was overwhelmed. And that was her form of self-harm. So she was hearing these rumors, it was getting brought back to her, and we were sitting on the bed one night and she just starts doing it really, really bad. And you could tell that she is bleeding, like she's biting herself very, very hard. And I tried to calm her down. I tried to comfort her a little bit, but I wasn't making an impact and I didn't know how to handle it and I didn't know what to do. She eventually was able to calm herself down. I don't know how much time had passed from that night, the first time I saw her doing that, to the next event that I'm about to tell you about. But we were standing in line for something, maybe chow one day, and someone said that to her. Someone got a little crazy with her and said in her face that she sold her kids for meth, and they repeated that statement. And You could see that that was just so triggering for her. And you could see that that was, first of all, a really crappy thing to say. Second of all, you could see that it was really affecting her, and she immediately went to doing that. She was biting her arm, and it scared another inmate that was very new. And that inmate that was new ran to the door and told the officer that this person needs help, you know, despite anyone trying to be like, But you can't make a scene, you can't yell, you can't scream in prison. If someone is doing that voluntarily, you cannot ask the officers for help. Because we know that if you are suicidal or you're self-harming, we know that you're going to be taken to solitary confinement. If a person is having a heart attack, that is not something that they're going to be disciplined for. In that circumstance, you can get the guard's attention for medical attention. If a person is doing this voluntarily or in a fight or things like that, things that they will be punished for, we can't tell officers. Well, this new inmate ran to the door to try to get her help. You know, the guards came in and took her to solitary confinement for self-harm. And I think she came back within just a few days. They didn't keep her there, so I'm not sure if she went to solitary or if she went on suicide watch, or I don't know what had happened, but she wasn't there for that long. And when she came back, you could just tell that like she was not okay, you know, and I felt so bad. I don't know what had gone on in her life. It's not my decision to make. Those were her biological children. She decided to find them better homes, and that was what she felt was best at the time. So to see the other women react that way, it was hard to deal with. Many of them didn't know that I had a baby because I didn't openly share that. I had given birth in a medium security prison, and now I'm in a maximum security prison. No one asked me, no one asked why I was transferred. It just wasn't talked about, and I didn't volunteer that information. So people didn't know that I had my daughter in prison because I'm at a different prison now, right? So it's not something I shared, but after seeing that, I absolutely did not want to share that. It's prison. You never know how someone is going to react to your life story and why you're there. But that was just a really unfortunate situation. To this day, I don't know where Lucy is. I don't know how she's doing. I will say though that she wasn't an easy person to have as a bunkie, only because she was a little emotionally unstable, like we all are. And I would always want to make people laugh and make them feel better, but at a certain point that was really draining to me. So for me, it was hard to be bunkies with her and share a space with her because I wanted her to laugh and be happy, and I'm kind of a goofball, and I didn't want things to be tense. And if I can make you smile and if I could be weird and funny and make you laugh, then I'm going to do that. You know, I know people think prison's like all depressing all the time and everyone's crying and whatever. No. No, I mean, do we get sad? Are we emotional? Absolutely. Is there drama? Yup. Can things pop off at any time? Also, yes. But I was just kind of the person that's gonna tell stupid jokes and try to make you laugh or make a meal, or I was just trying to make the best of a really hard situation. And I really felt for Lucy, but it was hard to be in close proximity with her and listen to how much she was struggling because I was also struggling, you know? And at that time, I really didn't understand my own mental health problems. I didn't understand that I had PTSD. I didn't understand how to cope with depression. So at that point in my life, I couldn't help anyone. I could barely help myself. So that's kind of how challenging prison life can be, is that you meet these people and you feel for them, you get to know them, you know their story and you know why they're there, and you hear about their past and their kids, and you get to know them and you form these friendships with them, and you can't help them because you're also struggling, and it's very hard. Prison life and prison culture is hard to explain, but it's also really hard to meet people because, you know, there are some really good people in prison. There are people that have been through a lot of shit and you feel for them. And sometimes you want to make them laugh, you know, because prison is so heavy and dark and really hard. All right, I feel like I'm rambling. I'm gonna end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober, whatever that looks like to you, because there's no wrong way to recover. And I will see you guys in my next one. Y'all don't even know. This wall looks so different on camera than it does on my laptop. Also, it's backwards to me. So, you know, the positioning of that has not been easy. This is what my shirt says, in case anyone's wondering. And yes, it's available in my merch. Don't worry, my tattoos don't like you either.